Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one, I think. We're going to be looking at Hamlet,
Oh, yeah.
but through a very specific lens, and that is the Enneagram.
Yes.
Have you heard of the Enneagram?
I have.
Okay, good. So you know this system of personality typing.
Yes.
And so we are going to be looking at Hamlet specifically as a self-preservation 6.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that. What is
Yeah.
a self-preservation 6?
So self-preservation 6 on the Enneagram is someone who is really focused on security,
Okay.
and so much of their energy goes into creating a sense of security in their life.
Yeah.
And that can kind of manifest in different ways, but a lot of it has to do with needing to know what's going to happen next, needing to feel prepared for whatever may come. And that can look like a lot of different things for different people.
Okay. And so how does that apply to Hamlet?
So when we look at Hamlet and we think of him as a self-preservation 6, I think it really explains a lot of his behavior because I think one of the things that's really interesting about Hamlet is that we always talk about his indecision,
Oh, yeah.
right? To be or not to be.
Right.
You know, this is a guy who can't make up his mind.
Yeah.
But I think that when we understand him as a self-preservation 6, we start to see that that indecision is not just a character flaw. It's actually coming from a very deep place in his personality.
Right. So his procrastination
Yes.
isn't just him taking his time. It's more than that.
Exactly.
It's like an actual need to feel secure.
It's a need for certainty.
Okay.
Because for a 6, the worst thing that can happen is making the wrong choice.
Oh, wow.
So they need to feel absolutely certain before they take action.
Okay.
And so we see that with Hamlet all the time. You know, he's not someone who just jumps into action.
Yeah.
He needs to weigh all the options. He needs to analyze every angle.
Well, he needs to prove it.
Yes.
He needs to have proof. That's why he puts on that play.
Exactly. That's a great example.
To play within a play.
Yes, the mousetrap.
The mousetrap.
And he does that to try to confirm Claudius's guilt.
Right. He doesn't just go and be like,
Right.
I'm taking revenge because I think that you did it.
Exactly. He needs to know for sure.
Yeah, he needs to know.
And I think that speaks to his 6-ness.
So he's not even messing with Claudius. He's like trying to alleviate his own anxiety
Exactly.
about the situation.
He needs to feel secure in his actions.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that takes time.
So he's like the epitome of analysis paralysis
Oh, totally.
stuck in his head.
Absolutely. I mean, think about to be or not to be, that whole soliloquy.
Right.
We can interpret that through the lens of a 6 as well,
Yeah.
because he's not just contemplating suicide. He's contemplating the very act of making a choice.
Oh.
Any choice, because for him, the stakes feel so high.
Right. And speaking of high stakes, fear is a huge part of this play.
Yeah.
And fear for a 6 is a whole different ball game.
It is.
You're saying
Yes.
it's not cowardice,
Yeah.
it's something else.
It's a heightened sense of threat, a constant vigilance against potential danger.
Well, he does face his father's ghost, though.
Right.
He doesn't run away.
No, he doesn't.
So he's not a coward.
He's not lacking in courage, but his fear is about this distrust of the world around him. He's always looking for, you know, the hidden motive,
Okay.
the potential betrayal.
Well, especially after his father was just murdered.
Exactly, by his own brother. I
Yeah.
mean, that kind of trauma.
They'll mess you up.
It will mess you up, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense that he would be,
Suspicious.
yeah, suspicious and wary and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And we see that also in his relationships,
Oh, yeah, Ophelia.
especially Ophelia.
He's so mean to her,
He is. He's hot and cold.
but he loves her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that push and pull is very typical of a 6
Okay.
because they crave connection,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they're terrified of being hurt,
Okay.
betrayed, or abandoned.
So he loves her, but he's afraid of
He's afraid of the vulnerability that comes with that love.
getting hurt. Yeah.
So it's not that he's not capable of love.
Exactly.
He just is so afraid.
The fear is just so strong.
Yeah.
And I think that's something a lot of us can relate to
Yeah.
on some level.
The fear of getting hurt.
Yes.
Yeah. And for a 6, it's just amplified.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so interesting how this analysis gives us a whole other layer of,
Yes.
like you said, complexity to his character.
Yeah, no, it really does.
It's like Shakespeare knew all about the Enneagram.
Right. I mean,
He didn't.
he didn't, but it's like he had this intuitive understanding
Right.
of these personality types, and he was able to create a character who so perfectly embodies the self-preservation 6.
Right.
It's really remarkable.
And it makes you wonder if other characters could be analyzed this way.
Oh, absolutely. I think we could do a whole series on this.
I know.
Looking at different characters through the lens of the Enneagram.
Right.
But for now, let's stick with Hamlet. And let's delve a little deeper into how this understanding of him as a self-preservation six can help us understand his actions throughout the play.
Okay.
We've been talking about all of Hamlet's struggles
Ah,
with doubt and fear and indecision.
right.
But the Enneagram doesn't just put people in boxes.
Right.
It also offers like a path for growth.
Okay.
Each type has a direction that they can kind of move towards when they're under stress or when they're reaching for their best selves.
Okay. So does Hamlet just stay stuck?
Right?
Or does he move forward? Does he grow at all?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what's so compelling about Hamlet is that we see him grapple with this.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't stay static.
Right. He's a human.
He's a human being.
Right.
He can change. He can grow.
Right. We tend to think of characters in literature as
Right.
fixed, but real people aren't like that.
Exactly. And so when we look at Hamlet through the lens of the Enneagram, we can actually see how his journey aligns with the potential growth path of a self-preservation six.
Okay. So tell me about that.
So under stress, sixes can sometimes take on like unhealthy traits of the three.
Okay.
So they become a little bit more competitive, image conscious, even deceptive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And we see that
we do.
a little bit.
When he's pretending to be mad.
And he's trying to outsmart Claudius.
Right. It's all very strategic.
Right.
But the healthier path for a six is to actually integrate qualities of the nine,
Okay.
which is about inner peace acceptance,
Okay.
going with the flow.
So instead of trying to control everything,
Yes.
he kind of has to let go.
Let go and surrender to what is.
And do we see that at all?
I think we see glimpses of it as the play goes on.
Okay.
Like, he starts to accept the uncertainty of life, the inevitability of death.
Well, he does say,
Remember that line?
there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Exactly. There's a sense of surrender there.
Right.
An acknowledgement that he doesn't have all the answers.
It's like he's moving from fear to acceptance,
Yes,
to even like a spiritual awareness.
I think so.
Wow.
And I think this shift allows him to finally act, even though he knows it might lead to his own demise.
Right.
By the final duel, he's no longer paralyzed by that doubt.
He's at peace,
He's made peace with his fate, and he's ready to face whatever comes.
and he says, the readiness is all.
Yes.
Wow. That's such a powerful moment.
It is.
It's like he's transcended his fear.
He's stepped into his power.
Yeah, he's taking control even though it might mean his death.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit.
Mm.
Even in the face of overwhelming adversity, even when we're burdened by our fears, we have the capacity to find that inner strength, to accept what is, and to act with courage.
So it's a hopeful message.
I think so.
Yeah. So by looking at Hamlet as a self-preservation six, we're not just learning about him,
Right.
we're also learning about,
Ourselves.
yeah, the potential for growth within each of us.
And you said that the Enneagram is a tool for self-discovery
Yes.
and understanding.
So how do you figure out your type?
That's a great question. And I think, there are a lot of resources out there.
Okay.
Books, websites, there are even certified Enneagram coaches
Okay.
who can guide you through the process of self-discovery.
What about using this with other characters?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's fascinating to think about.
Yeah, it's like horrible.
Like, we could analyze any character.
It's a whole new lens
Yes.
to look at literature.
It's like having a decoder ring for human behavior.
Yes.
And suddenly these characters become more than just, fictional creations.
right.
They become reflections of ourselves,
Right.
of the universal human experience.
It's like the collective unconscious.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of great literature.
Mm-hmm.
It holds up a mirror to our own souls.
Right.
It allows us to see ourselves reflected in these characters,
Even though they're from so long ago.
even though they're, hundreds of years old.
But let's go back to Hamlet for a second. What's the biggest takeaway you want our listeners to have?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. The next time you encounter a complex character
All right.
in literature or in life,
Yeah.
try looking at them through the lens of the Enneagram.
Okay.
You might be surprised by the depth of understanding that it unlocks. I think it's interesting, when we think about him as a self-preservation six, it makes his story even more tragic in a way.
Yeah.
Because here's this guy who wants so desperately to feel secure,
Right.
to have certainty and control in a world that is inherently uncertain.
Right.
And you can just see how that internal conflict could drive someone to the edge.
It makes you wonder about fate versus free will.
Oh, yeah.
Like if his personality is kind of predisposing him to these behaviors and anxieties,
Right.
does he even have a choice?
That's the age-old question, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
But I think this analysis adds a really interesting layer to that conversation.
Okay.
It's not just that, fate is predetermined, it's that our personalities are ingrained patterns. They shape the choices we make.
Right.
And those choices ultimately shape the paths our lives take.
It's not just external forces.
It's also our internal world.
Right.
Yeah, our psychology is playing a role.
So Hamlet's need for certainty leads to his hesitation.
Yes.
His fear of betrayal isolates him. His anxiety fuels his anger.
Exactly.
And all of that leads to tragedy.
And it's so human, right?
It is. It's like his fatal flaw.
Yeah.
Isn't some, grand vice.
Yeah,
It's just insecurity and fear.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Hamlet continues to resonate with us
Right.
centuries later, because we see ourselves.
Yeah. We all struggle with that.
We all struggle with those things.
Yeah, self-doubt,
Yeah.
fear.
The need for control. And that brings us back to the idea of the Enneagram as a tool for understanding not just literary characters, but also ourselves and the people in our lives.
If we can recognize these patterns
Yeah?
in ourselves and others, maybe we can handle things better.
Right. Absolutely. With more awareness and compassion.
So as we're wrapping up here, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I would say this. The next time you encounter a complex character, whether it's in a book or a movie, or even in your own life, try looking at them through the lens of the Enneagram.
Okay.
You might be surprised at what you discover.
It's like a secret decoder ring
It is.
for human behavior.
Yeah.
And maybe we can even decode our own behavior along the way.
Exactly. Because ultimately, the more we understand ourselves
Yeah.
and the people around us, the better equipped we are to navigate the complexities of life.
Well, this has been an amazing
It has.
deep dive.
I've enjoyed it.
It's so interesting how a new perspective can really change how we see things.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn.
That's for sure. Well, thanks for joining us on this journey into the mind of Hamlet.
My pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.